All right, here we are, back after a very long break. We've had a very busy. I guess it's probably been a good 8 months, I'd say.
Yeah, you can pretty much call this season two.
Season two. Yep, there you go. Season two. I like
That's
it.
what I would say. Because we're pretty much starting back again right where we started last time, right?
Very similar let off.
Our
Yep.
first episode was released around the same time. I think it was a little later than this. We started in what, probably October, November of last
Yeah,
year.
somewhere around there. Yeah. Yeah, we're just dropping with a late summer release this year.
So yeah, welcome back to the Rabbit Hole Podcast, everybody. This is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. Uh, of course, the year 2020 when we started this whole thing was pretty much like the year of conspiracy theories, and
For sure.
so that's pretty much just the topics that we covered.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you'll find this episode to be a a little bit less on the uh, tinfoil hat side and a little bit more on the textbook side of things. We're gonna just try to be a little more educational and not necessarily delve into the.
Yeah.
But as
Stuff that
usual,
you
this
think would
is
be a conspiracy, but is actually real life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. Who knows? I mean, this is pretty much a free flowing thing. None of this. We don't really write down a script or anything like that, or follow any sort of plan.
Definitely.
So we just kind of let the conversation evolve as it may be, and we'll see how it goes.
Which is, I think, is the best way to do it. Just
Yeah,
free flow of information.
absolutely. Yeah.
Free flow. Well, so what we've decided to talk about, and we are down one regular that we would normally have.
Mm.
CJ is still on his hiatus. Um, we haven't really decided where he's at yet, or where we're going to say he's at yet, but he's somewhere that we can't say. So um, until he comes back, he's somewhere else. Now, I'm pretty interested in what we're talking about today because I've always wanted to try diving into dark web and Silk Road and all the stuff that we're talking about
Yeah.
today. I've always wanted to dive into that, but I've never really.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've always thought the fact that there was an entire other side of the internet
Right.
that most people don't even know how to access um, has always kind of fascinated me a little bit.
Yeah.
And the I'll just say what we're talking about, the Silk Road, um, which to some of you, if you're history buffs or something like that, has a different meaning. But just to preface things, we are not talking about the trade route from Europe to Asia
No.
that was used by Marco Polo and all that. Um, we are talking about the dark web marketplace uh, that became pretty much the number one spot to go if you wanted to buy anything. I mean, that was the idea behind it in the first place. That's why the Silk Road interests me so much is because I tend to follow libertarian ideals and beliefs, and
Proud of you.
people should be able to purchase and explore things that whatever they want. If they're adults, then they should be able to indulge in their adult
Right.
uh, fantasies, however they see fit. And that's the original idea behind the Silk Road was uh, a place for people to express that kind of freedom.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know what the Silk Road was. I actually stumbled upon it completely by accident. Um, I forgot where I was, but I remember I bought a book on my phone called American Kingpin. And I'm not really much of a reader. I read articles and stuff like that, but I've never really been much to pick up a book and actually read a book. But I think I was gonna be doing like a staff duty shift one night or something like that. I was gonna be up for a long time and not really have anything else better to do. So I was like, I'll just buy the first book that comes across that seems interesting to me. And it was Silk Road, or not Silk Road, but American Kingpin, which is the story of Silk Road. And after reading that book, it basically, I mean, it goes in probably greater depth of what we're about to hear. We're just basically going to give you a rundown of everything, but like a synopsis. But if you want to learn more and actually go through all the like nitpicky details and stuff like that, I highly recommend reading that book.
It's called the American Kingpin.
Yeah, it's called American Kingpin, the epic hunt for the criminal. Uh, oh, the rest of the title is being cut off
Is
for
it
me.
Dread Pirate Roberts?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I love that. That's the guy who kind of started and operated the Silk Road. He went under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts. And if
Mhm.
anybody's familiar, that's actually a reference to a character from The Princess Bride. So
Yeah. So yes, I mean the we talked about this. Gave you the rundown of the Silk Road, but so now since we mentioned Dread Pirate Roberts, we'll actually talk about the man behind the myth. But Ross Ulbricht was a college student at UT of Austin. Um, if a genius of a guy, if you ask me. I mean, the fact that a random college student can mastermind all this is uh, crazy. But he's a college student at UT Austin who doesn't really understand what he's going to do with his life. He's kind of lost. He started a online book selling company with one of his friends that went under pretty quickly. It never really made it far. Um, he attempted day trading, which is the fall of many uh, wide-eyed college students. They think that they can just jump in and day trading is going to be their road to riches, but it never works out that way. And he also started a video game company, which also failed. So he's all these ventures are invested in technology in some way. So um,
what was he going to school for? Do you know what was his background?
he
Was it
graduated with a bachelor's degree in physics.
physics? Okay.
Yeah. So he was raised in Austin, Texas. I was wrong. He went to the University of Texas at Dallas,
Hmm.
where he graduated in 2006 with a degree in physics. And then shortly after that, he attended Pennsylvania State University, where he was in a master's program for material science and engineering. Uh, and it was during this time at Pennsylvania State University where he came across the libertarian ideals of free market and basically being able to do whatever you wanted as long as you weren't hurting somebody else.
Mhm.
Um, he actually joined a libertarian club, I believe, while he was at Pennsylvania State University and went to multiple like discussions, participated in different college debates and stuff like that. Uh, so he was a smart dude. I mean, he knew to he knew his way around computers. Obviously, he knew how to access the dark web and all that stuff. So he it's a if you ask me, this is the perfect chemical reaction. He has all the perfect ingredients to become a criminal mastermind. I mean, honestly, like
Yeah.
he is hyper intelligent
Mhm.
and he has no idea. He has all this free time on his hands and he has no idea what to do with himself.
Right.
Like that's just that's a breeding ground for bad ideas most of
And
the
you
time.
toss in a couple failures in there, and then you
Yeah.
have.
He's already tried 3 different businesses. He's running out of options.
Mhm.
And from there, he comes up with this idea to blend his um, knowledge of the internet and computers and his libertarian economic ideas into the main topic of this episode, which is the Silk Road. And so in February of 2011, the Silk Road launches online for the first time. And that's kind of where this story really starts to take off. Um, so he launches the Silk Road, and his first he uses Tor, which is a hidden internet browser, basically. A lot of people nowadays use VPNs, but this is even more complex. Like a VPN connects you to one server in a different location. Tor uses like, are you getting feedback? Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Are you getting feedback?
Yeah, I was for a second. But
Okay.
anyways, Tor uses hundreds of servers and bounces through hundreds of different servers at like nonstop. So it's almost impossible to track. So anyways, he uses Tor to launch his website, the Silk Road, and his original idea for it is just for drugs. I mean, he's a college kid with libertarian ideas. He's obviously into drugs, and not just weed or anything like that. He was known to like psychedelics and like mushrooms and acid
I
and
mean, who
stuff
can
like
blame
that.
the guy?
And he basically wanted his site to be like not necessarily a regulated, but his idea was for it to be a safer place for someone to be able to experiment with drugs. So his idea behind it was if you wanted to buy cocaine, you had to go to a sketchy neighborhood and buy it off some dude who probably had a gun
Hmm.
and who had no qualms with robbing and murdering you after the fact. Whereas if you did it online, you never had to have face-to-face contact with the person. You never had to run the risk of, if you used his site, you never had to run the risk of having in contact with police, and you could leave a review on the site for the vendor or the seller. So that's how he basically it was unregulated, but it was regulated by the community itself.
Right.
So if you bought drugs from a guy and they ended up bad and the guy didn't, you could leave a review on him just like you could on Amazon.
Right.
Eventually, after enough bad reviews, people are going to stop buying your product. So sellers were more inclined to put out good product and buyers were more inclined to buy because they had less risk. Um, which turned the Silk Road into, I mean, it was the perfect place, I mean, to buy drugs. And that's initially what it just started out as, was it was just drugs at the beginning. And I forgot the exact numbers that it turned over within such a short amount of time.
I have sales here. Um, so from the 3rd of February of 2012 to the 24th of January of 2012, there was over 15 million in transactions made. So that's the
Yeah,
first year of launch. Yeah.
yeah. The site had to like close down and update and relaunch itself multiple times
Hmm.
because it grew so quickly that it crashed the servers that it was being held on. And to combat the paper trail, he used Bitcoin, which back then in 2011, when this site launched, Bitcoin was still kind of a thing that not many people knew about.
Yeah.
Just like Tor and just like dark web, it's kind of like you only knew about Bitcoin if you were involved in that kind of technology space,
Right.
and you
And
kept
back
up with
then,
that kind of thing.
Bitcoin, in the 2011, 2012 timeframe, Bitcoin would have been $100 a coin at most.
Yeah, Bitcoin was a very, very small fraction of what it is today.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more accessible for one, and Bitcoin and its the properties of Bitcoin. That's one of the reasons so many people like it is untraceable, um,
Yeah.
especially back then, whenever it wasn't regulated at all, and no one really even knew how it came to be a thing. So basically, a person wanting to buy drugs off of the Silk Road would go to a broker site, buy Bitcoin, go to the Silk Road, trade Bitcoin for drugs, and then the person selling the drugs would take the Bitcoin, put it in their account, and then at a later date they would exchange the Bitcoin for cash. And the drugs would just arrive in the mail. I mean, packages did get seized, obviously, but there was definitely plenty that slipped through the cracks. I mean, the mail service isn't really foolproof. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's plenty of ways to hide drugs inside of a package.
Oh, definitely. I found some more numbers here about the startup years that kind of you're covering right now. So from February 6, 2011 to July 23, 2013, there were approximately 1.2 million transactions completed on the site. Total revenue generated from these sales was 9,519,000 bitcoins. So times 100, we're talking in the billions
Yeah,
of money that's been changed around through this.
yeah, insane amounts of money, and the way that Ross or Dread Pirate Roberts made his money off of this whole deal is he would take a small percentage of each transaction, just like Amazon does. Whenever you sell an item on Amazon, is they take, and you got to think the amount of transactions that are being done on here in the millions and billions of dollars. If you take even like a 0.5% of each transaction, you're living a good life. And for a college student who has nothing and then all of a sudden he has everything, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, they actually were able to track the amount of Bitcoin that he pulled in and run that back across. So he made off of it 614,305 bitcoins.
Yeah,
So
which if you translate that to today's,
yeah, yeah,
what's Bitcoin worth now? Like 32,000
yeah,
per
around about
coin?
39,000.
Yeah, I mean, of course that's in today's standards, and
Yeah,
and back
I'm
in
going back here to
2011 to I think around 2000. I can't remember exactly when the site shut down. We'll get to that in a second. But I believe it was 2013.
yeah. So in 2013, it looks like about $950 was the average for 2013.
Yeah. So Ross creates this site. He basically tells nobody about it except for he has a couple very close friends that I believe work with him on the site. um, who I don't remember their names. They've never really been named publicly because obviously they want to keep their names away from it now. And then his girlfriend, Julie Julie V, uh, Julia V, and that's a dedicated woman right there. She finds out that
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
doing this and sticks around. But he starts realizing the scope of what he's doing, and he ends up. I'm trying to get to the right page here. So he realizes the scope of what he's doing and how illegal it is and everything, and he starts because all you need to run this site is a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. So he starts taking trips to just South America, the Bahamas, the Caribbean, different places all over the country, just to stay on the move and avoid uh, any police. And the site was up for a while before it even caught attention of any sort of law enforcement. I mean, a couple months. It was, yeah, June of 2011. Uh, so it ran for around 6 months before it was even on the radar of law enforcement. And by this time, Ross is bringing in millions of dollars. So before he even has the attention of police and before they even start to make an investigation into the site, he already has a pile of cash that he can sit on to use to cover himself. Um, so as the site grows, obviously more people need to come into the picture to manage it. He starts hiring people off of the site to help him manage the site, and he eventually builds it into pretty much a business. I mean, I, I think if I remember correctly in the book, it said that he uh, had like a customer service representative. He had someone that would go through the site and like kick off uh, vendors who had bad reviews, and then things kind of start to take a weird turn for the site whenever he notices that it's more than just drugs that are going onto the site for sale. He sees guns on there as one of the first things, and it makes him uncomfortable at first, but then he falls back on his libertarian economic ideas and honestly goes even deeper into them, because the idea when he first started this was, drugs aren't going to hurt anybody except the person who decides to use them. So what's the problem? Well, once he sees guns pop up on the site, he has kind of a question of morals within himself and says, like, someone's probably using these guns to hurt other people. Should I allow this on the site? And that's kind of where he doubles down on his libertarian ideas and says, yes, this is a free market. This is the freest of the free market, and there will be no regulation. And so he allows people to sell guns on the site. Shortly after the guns start to go up on the site, there starts to be services offered on the site, like hitmen. And people are actually using the site to contract assassins and hitmen. And he yet again has another question within himself, like, am I going to allow this? And I think this is kind of where the downfall of the Silk Road starts to happen,
Mm-hmm.
is when these when weapons and services such as hitmen
Right.
become available on the site. That's kind of where it goes from I think that's where it really began to pop up on the FBI's radar
Right.
a little more. Um, so this is kind of like at the peak of where the site is going. I mean, it's within just a 6 months time frame, it's exploded and it's offering more than just drugs. So he is contacted by a Gawker uh, reporter, journalist, whatever, and they post an article about the site on the Gawker website, and that's kind of where it first catches the attention of law enforcement and the government. And shortly after that, U.S. Senator Charles Schumer asked the DEA to step in and shut down the site. Uh, and that's where the government really starts its attack on the Silk Road.
Right.
Let's see, what else do I got here?
I did the math on how much money he made. If we figure it based off of the July 2013 Bitcoin price, and just use that one figuring factor, he would have put in his own pocket in United States dollars 577,446,700
Jeez,
in his own pocket. That's his commission.
yeah,
So I did the math on how much money had moved around based on that, and it was over $12 billion.
yeah. I mean, uh that's not quite Amazon numbers, I don't think, but that's pretty freaking close.
Pretty cool. I mean, it's Amazon of the drug
On
world.
a site that sells illegal services and
Yeah,
items.
you hire a hitman on.
Um so anyways, he's going through pretty good, pretty safe until this Gawker article gets published in June 2011. In After that, the police are kind of on his tail, like they're trying to figure out who's behind this website. They can't really figure out who it is. Um, the site actually, in May of 2013, the site actually gets shut down for a short period of time uh, because of a government like attack on it. But shortly afterwards, it's set back up and goes again. Um, on June 2013, the DEA seized 11 bitcoins, which was then only worth a total of $814. So not really a big victory on their part compared to the billions that it was bringing in. The way that they found uh, the IP address and the way they were able to attack the site was actually from data leaked from a site's from the site's CAPTCHA.
Mm-hmm.
So like that thing that says I'm not a robot and you got a little
Yeah.
check the little box or whatever. The CAPTCHA was on a server in Reykjavik, Iceland,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually where they pinged it for the first time. That was the first time they were able to ping a spot where the um, the Silk Road was had a server.
And it was a
And
security measure that got him.
yeah, and from there, that's kind of where they were able to uh, kind of just follow the trail, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's where they how they were able to track him down. The I wish I would have read the book again before we did this. I probably should have, but because it goes deeper into uh the details of the investigation and how they managed to like actually track this dude down and everything like that.
Right.
And if I'm remembering correctly, I'll preface this by saying that I could be totally wrong. But if I remember correctly, they actually tracked a package that was they actually they somehow managed to infiltrate the site as an undercover seller, and they were able to send a package to a potential buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And they had tracked this package to the buyer's location, and they sat outside this dude's house and waited for him to come outside and grab the package. And I believe the buyer himself was actually turned out to be Ross.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it was either it was Ross or it was someone who was like high up
One of
in the
the
chain of
admins of the
command,
group?
yeah, on the site.
Hmm.
But I don't think they were able to actually arrest him. I don't know if he ever actually came outside and picked up the package. Uh, I think he realized that it was a sting operation, and he,
Got away from there?
yeah, kind of bounced out of that. But anyways, the closing on this is one of the main reasons he actually got caught is because of the IRS. Somehow there was research conducted by an IRS criminal investigator named Gary Alford, who was able to somehow follow the money trail and come up with the assumption that Ross was the ultimate kingpin of the operation.
Hmm.
Um,
Always the IRS.
yeah, yeah, that's the thing, man. That just goes to show you that um, there's two things you can't escape in life, and it's death and taxes.
Yeah.
And the IRS is the king of the taxes. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And we're all just debt slaves on a tax farm.
hmm Um. So, anyways, the Ulbricht was connected to the Dread Pirate Robert pseudonym by Gary Alford, who was working alongside the DEA in the case in 2013. And the connection, I'm reading this straight off a Wikipedia site, so I'll give references where they lie. The connection was made by linking the username Altoid used during Silk Road's early days to announce the website. Um, so yeah, I guess you have to go back to the beginning of the inception of it. Seeing as how most people don't really know what the dark web is,
Right.
how does this site come to manifest into such a big thing?
Right.
And that there was there had to be some sort of advertisement
Right.
for the site, but you can't really advertise something that sells drugs on the internet.
Right.
So what Ross would do is he would go into different chat rooms using VPNs and Tor and stuff like that, and he would go into these different chat rooms under pseudonyms, and he would be like, "Hey, have you heard of this, you know, website where you can do this?" And he would literally give people instructions on how to access the site and to buy items off the site. And he would use different code words, and I guess Altoid was a code word that he would drop in random forums and stuff that meant he was searching for someone to hire
Okay.
and or looking for programming help and stuff like that.
Right.
And when you answered to the name Altoid, to the call of Altoid, that's when you would get to actually be introduced to, the Dread Pirate Roberts himself, and he would tell you like, "Hey, I'm, you know, the man," and everything like that.
Man,
Yeah.
I'm the man selling the drugs.
um, so I'll go on to kind of the downfall of the site here, and like I said, I mean, he already had the DEA after him, obviously, for being selling drugs on the site and everything like that. But
Right.
Whenever he started to do the whole, whenever he started to allow drug or guns and the assassination services on the site. That's where more government agencies got involved, and so they were able to put more manpower and more money behind the investigation. And so they ended up tracking him in October 13. They track him down to uh, the Glen Park branch of the San Francisco Library, and they're basically like, "Hey, this dude." They were following him for a long time. They were tracking him down. They knew that he would have. They knew this kid was smart
Right.
and that he had to have um, encryptions on the thing. So basically, every time Ross closed his computer and shut his computer down, it would completely delete all of his history and everything like that, all of his cookies and everything. And there would be no way if you opened up his computer and didn't like re-log back into the site
Right.
that you had proof of him actually running the site. Um, so they knew they had to catch him in a place where he was actively working on the site. And they knew they had to grab him off of his computer before he was able to close the computer and shut it down. So they track him to the Glen Park branch of the San Francisco Public Library. They send in undercover agents who act as quarreling lovers, is the specific term they use. And he gets distracted by these two people arguing in the middle of this library where it's supposed to be quiet, and they're sitting here yelling at each other. So they walk in there, they kind of walk up behind him, and while he's distracted looking at these other two, one agent slips a flash drive into the computer, grabs it off the table, and hands it off to another agent while he grabs him and cuffs Ross behind his back. And at that point in time, once they got that flash drive into the computer and it's open on the site, they can download pretty much every single file he has, and they have their proof
Right.
of him running the site.
Why is he doing it
And
from such a public place?
it was mainly because the site itself had become so large and ridiculous, basically, that he had to get on. It was ruining his life, basically. He
Right.
had to get on this site constantly to handle customer service complaints,
Hmm.
to monitor the site, kick people off the site, allow new people onto the site. Um, I think honestly, what it was is what gets to every criminal that gets caught is greed
Right.
and just a fascination with himself and what he created.
Right.
But
Yeah. 'Cause see, if I'm doing this from a beach in a non-extradition country in a cabana, sitting there with a Wi-Fi hotspot doing it.
yeah,
I'm not doing it from inside the U.S.
yeah.
in a
Well, that's the
public
thing is
library.
he moved around constantly. He lived in multiple different locations.
Mhm.
I don't know if him and his girlfriend were together at this point in time. I think they were kind of seeing each other still, but they weren't like together. Like I think he was trying to like get her back.
Mhm.
So he was coming back in and out of the country, and he would visit her in Austin. He would visit his family in Austin and all that stuff. Um, but he lived in multiple different places. I think if I remember right, he lived in like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Austin, Dallas. He lived down in South America for a while, took lots of trips to South America. But yeah, he never made the official move, I guess, which
I see. I don't understand that. If you're
is
making,
definitely a mistake. Yeah.
yeah, because like the number right here, $577 million. If you're
Yeah.
making that, you can buy an entire country in South America and create a
Pretty much.
non-extradition country with your own private army. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't get it. I don't,
Yeah.
and that's
He
all
definitely
these guys do that.
didn't make the best decisions on keeping himself. I mean, he did quite a bit to keep himself off the radar. He technologically wise,
Hmm.
I think he was really intelligent with it, and he was able to keep himself hidden pretty well. It's just a matter of like his actual physical being.
Right.
Uh, I think he kind of got to a point to where he was full of himself He had too big of an
Yeah.
ego and thought he couldn't be caught. And because I mean, even if he did get caught, he probably always thought like, all I have to do is slam the computer shut, and they have
Right.
nothing,
Right.
you know. So
Sure.
even if I think if you're sitting in a public park, and you see two dudes walking down the street that are kind of eyeing you a little bit weird, you just shut that computer and there you go, it's gone.
Right.
Um, but yeah, he just got distracted, I guess, in that library, and that got him.
I just, with that kind of money, that kind of network, you can move your entire family down there with you to some non. I don't understand criminal masterminds. Don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. I think honestly that's where it stems from though, is they literally just get too big of an ego,
Yeah.
you know. The site's running so from 2000 early 2011 to late 2013, so 2.5 years. He is scot free and
Right.
nothing happens. At that point in time, it just becomes like a routine. It's your everyday lifestyle and you don't think twice about it. And you think, well, I've made it this far, they're not catching me now.
How could
So,
you imagine how draining that would be?
oh yeah.
Like just the fact that for 2.5 years you're living this life where you're constantly having to look out over your shoulder, watch out for everybody, be thinking I have to close my computer at this second.
Yeah.
And that in is another reason why I would not. I don't understand. I mean, I guess Interpol did get involved in this because there was quite a bit of international sales, but still, I just
Some of the biggest sales were international, actually.
yeah
One of the largest sales that they found on the site was there was a guy that got busted in Australia
saw that. Yeah,
um, that was selling internationally.
MDMA wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
MDMA and ecstasy.
yeah, yeah. I just anytime that something like this comes up, and not just in the podcast, but me and you talked about this before in other setups. Is I mean, I don't understand if you're going into something as I know this is illegal, I'm gonna do it, and I'm doing it for profit. Okay, you have to turn your whole life into that model. You know, you can't
Mhm.
just be half in, half out on that
Yeah.
stuff. Now, there was, as far as services and things that are offered, he did shut down. He did draw a line somewhere, didn't he? Um,
I don't know. I'll just go through a list of the products that were here. So we had drugs, of course, which
mhm.
were the best part is it was like it was a legitimate website. I mean, it
Right.
was
Yeah.
Amazon. You could search for what
Yeah.
you wanted to, and they had different categories and everything. So drugs were grouped under stimulants, psychedelics, prescription precursors, opioids, ecstasy, dissociatives, and steroids and PEDs. He had fake driver's licenses for sale on the site, so people could get fake IDs. Stolen credit cards, assassinations, weapons of different types, and even like legitimate legal goods that
Mhm.
had probably been stolen and stuff like that.
Right.
So there was porn for sale on the site, expensive jewelry, apparel, art, books. The the Silk Road even had its own book club, basically, which sold books that were um, usually kind of monitored on other
Right.
sites, such as like the Anarchist Cookbook and other books that like gave instructions on how to build like bombs and do like complicated
Actually,
computer hacking and stuff.
that's still up, isn't it?
I'm not 100% sure on that, to be
I
honest. It wouldn't
read
surprise me a bit.
I've read somewhere um
Because even though buying those books isn't necessarily illegal, I'm sure once you purchase a book like that, you're kind of watched afterwards. And this was a way for people to purchase those books without anybody knowing,
Or if you
pretty
write
much.
one.
Yeah, yeah. If you write one, you're definitely on a website somewhere. Yeah, you got your name on the no-fly list probably.
Yeah, probably so.
Um, but there's also I think Ross himself denies this, but there's some sources that say the child pornography was on the sale on the site for a while. Um, I'm not. I don't think that Ross really condoned that himself,
Right.
because this dude, yeah, he is a criminal mastermind. He broke the law, and he actually did hurt people. I mean, he himself was charged with, I think, like 6 different homicides. Because he actually paid to have people murdered on this.
Yeah.
Like he paid for assassination services himself. He actually had a specific guy that it was his favorite that he used.
Those all got
Um,
dropped though, right? He never actually got charged with those, I don't think. Like they charged him, but they didn't have enough to actually
yeah,
take it to trial. I
I
think that
believe
because he
so.
ended up pleading, right?
Well, yeah, he's been to different like multiple different appeal cases and stuff like that too. Um, but yeah, I don't think he ever got formally charged
With the murder attempts.
with a murder. But I think other people on that use the site have been charged for that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, here's a
But
couple.
anyways, I think the site kind of turned into an animal that he couldn't control anymore, and
Mhm.
and that's I think where the child pornography thing stems from. Is I don't think he really approved of that,
Right.
but it got to a point where he could no longer control the site or really what went up on it. So, I'm sure it happened.
Yeah. And that's the way that anything like this, once it starts growing, if you can't bring on enough people to handle it, it's like any business. If you can't bring on enough people to handle it, well, then it's going to grow outside of what you can hold. And if it's a situation like this, you can't just be bringing on anybody to handle it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I can only imagine finding the people that are willing and have the ability um, to help you manage and run a site like this was probably pretty difficult. I mean,
Okay, so the book club is still in existence. It still exists as a private tour-based chat room.
I can
So
only imagine what goes on in that
in that
chat
chat
room.
room, I mean, obviously it's not too bad if it still exists. If it's known about and it still exists, I mean, I feel like I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe go out and check it out.
Um, so all in all, finally, after the arrest, Ross is indicted on charges of money laundering, computer hacking, conspiracy to traffic narcotics. The FBI seizes 26,000 bitcoins from different accounts on the Silk Road. This time worth approximately $3.6 million. So they got a little bit of a better haul than what they got the first time. Um, uh, and then later on in October of 2013, they said that they seized over 144,000 bitcoins,
Well,
which belonged specifically to Ross. And at that time, it was worth $28.5 million. And that's just his personal money.
see, that's enough money to buy an island. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely made some wrong choices in
Yeah.
this whole deal. I mean, the first wrong choice was probably starting up the site itself, but
Right.
you know,
I probably like so let's just say that I'm in this situation and I start this website. Okay, like the drug sales, okay, yeah. The weapon sales, okay, yeah. It's the services. The
Yeah,
moment
when you
services
get
get offered,
the services thing is where you really start to jump into the gray area,
yeah,
and because that's when you have like in-person contact
right,
between, you know,
yeah, yeah. It should be like a no contact.
because if you're buying items on the Silk Road, you
Mhm.
have two people involved in the transaction. You have the buyer and the seller,
Right,
and that's it, you know. When you get a service involved, such as like an assassination, you have the
mhm.
buyer, the seller, and then you have the victim, you
Yes,
know. So somebody else who has not gone on the site themselves and has not done nothing wrong themselves is now brought into this,
right.
transaction.
And
Um,
all it takes for one, for it to become a massive issue is one guy gets arrested for an assassination that he was hired for over Silk Road, and then he confesses for a plea to some local DA, and then it goes right up the flagpole, and then you have a task force like this established that's now going out against you.
yeah,
If it would have been drugs and maybe even weapons, I don't think it would have been as big a deal.
yeah,
I think he could have operated probably for years longer.
yeah. He definitely would have never had the well, like you said, I mean, if that's where you start to have connections too, is like say a guy hires a hitman to kill his ex-wife or his boss. You have relationships that you can tie back to that thing. So the
Right.
hitman gets caught, he flips for a deal, and he says, "Hey, I was supposed to kill this person."
Hmm.
Okay, so now we can grab this person and be like, someone that you know targeted you.
Right.
So now they can start drawing lines to like who that person was.
Hmm.
Then they can find that person who hired the hitman. Then they can figure out how to get on the site themselves
Right.
and all that stuff. Whereas when you have the drugs thing, like if someone gets busted for selling drugs, they can't really flip on the person who bought the drugs
When they don't know them.
because, yeah, they don't know the person who bought the
Yeah.
drugs. I mean, they had an address to send the drugs to, but in most cases, the police are wanting to capture people who sell the drugs, not
Right.
necessarily the people who buy the drugs.
Right.
So if you catch the person who's selling the drugs, you already have the big fish. You're not really worried about that person who bought, a couple ounces of coke.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Probably wouldn't even be worth your effort to go through tracking them down through a server system and go to it from there. I just think that it was stupid to add services in to allow
yeah,
services. I think that yeah, I understand as a ardent libertarian anarchist, whatever you want to call me. I completely understand free market and I completely understand that, but I think that he should have looked at it from the capitalistic side of libertarianism and realized that this is his business. And so, being his business, he did have the right to refuse a service.
yeah, yeah. I think and that's where his greed got in front of his morals, I
Mhm.
think, and his ideals. Because I mean, libertarianism is all about free market and everything like
Mhm.
that. But I think if you ask 99.9% of libertarians, they're all for free market as long as it doesn't hurt somebody,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
That's where they draw a pretty solid line.
Yeah.
And he got to that line and was like, and saw the money on the other side of it and you know, cross the line.
I wonder what the commission they were getting off of like an assassination was.
Like what they were getting paid to do it.
Like not well. I mean, I obviously wonder how much they were getting paid, obviously, but like how much Silk Road was making in commission off of setting up that search.
So, I mean, it would just be basically like a percentage of the transaction, just like every other transaction.
See, that's the thing for me. If it was like a service like that, I'd be charging like 15-20% commission if I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing like a single
Um,
digit percentage.
yeah, I think he was just doing, I mean, I think it was just like an automatic thing. He would get like and I don't even think it was much of it was even like a percent. He would get like a point, like a fraction of a percent.
Right.
But another way that he made money was to open an account on the site to be able to sell items, you had to pay a fee.
Right.
And
So he'd make money off
that's
that.
where he made money that way too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there was so one of the estimations is that he himself had paid 700 up to $730,000 uh for his own hitmen.
And we know of 6 attempted, right?
Yeah, there was 6 alleged.
So I mean, we're saying $100,000 a pop.
Something like that, around a little more than $100,000, like
110 maybe one.
let's see here, 730, 121,
121.
so around about. I mean, I'm sure some
So
charge more
it
than
was probably
others.
like 110 in tax.
Yeah, so there's probably like get into the semantics of it. Probably between like 100 and $150,000
Mhm.
for something like that.
I don't know anybody in my life that's worth that. You know, I mean that's
That's a lot of
insane.
money to
Yeah,
pay to kill
you
somebody. I
gotta
mean,
really hate somebody for that. I
yeah.
mean,
Which I mean, those were the ones that he was um
paying. Yeah, I'm sure
contracting.
he was
So I
buying
mean,
like the
one,
top notch guys.
yeah, one, he had the money, and two, he was probably going for the dude that was legitimate and all that.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was hitmen on the site that were like, "Hey man,
I'll do it for 50K.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
couple grand, I'll whack your ex-wife," kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But
That's well, I just
so yeah, at the end of the day, Ross's trial begins January 13th of 2015 at a federal court in Manhattan. He pleads guilty to founding the Silk Road,
mhm,
but he tried to pawn it off on somebody else, a guy named Mark Carpeles, which didn't work out for him. The judge pretty much said, "No, you're not gonna try to throw this on someone else."
mhm.
And she basically made a rule in the court that he would not be able to allow to say anyone else's name um, inside the courtroom.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where he got, I'd say, screwed over. I mean, he did the crime, so
Right,
didn't really get screwed over, but that's kind of where he got unlucky, I guess I could say.
right.
Is I think that judge specifically that he got was ready to throw the book at this dude, and she did. He was ultimately convicted of 7 charges, which was engaging in criminal enterprise, narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and computer hacking, um, just to name a few. They accused him of paying to murder at least 6 people, but there was no evidence of the murders actually being carried out, so the accusations never came to actual formal charges. Um, During the actual trial itself, the judge who was on the case received death threats. Um, from just random people who use the site, I guess. They posted her her information was posted on WikiLeaks, like her address, social security number, all that stuff. And at the end of the day, he was sentenced to
Oh my
two
gosh.
two life
Yeah,
sentences without the possibility of parole.
I was just reading that.
So yeah, um, this dude who was in his 20s at the time of the arrests will now spend the rest of his life in prison. But I mean, he had a good ride while it lasted, I guess. I mean, he made millions of dollars and pretty much lived out his life dream of expressing his libertarian ideas. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's the story of the Silk Road. The rise and fall.
I'm glad we talked about it.
Okay.
I'm glad we talked about it. I'd like to talk about some other, at a later date, some other dark web related, marketplaces or stories or things as well, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
other stuff out there.
Yeah. Or even just talk about the actual Silk Road, the first one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we like variety here.
Yeah. To be honest, the actual Silk Road had probably caused the death of
More
many
people.
more people
Yeah.
than this Silk Road did. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that ran from the Han Dynasty all the way to, like, I mean, in all actuality, the 1600s, whenever they started sailing around. So,
yeah, from 130 BC to 1453 AD.
yeah.
And for a large portion of its life, it was controlled by
Mongols?
the Mongols, and you know, they weren't very friendly people. So,
No, no, they weren't. They weren't. Yeah, that would be a fun topic to cover too. Um, but glad to be back for a new
mhm.
season. Um, had a great time talking with you. We're kind of popping around the idea of different people coming in and coming out too. So you might see
Yeah.
some new faces for some episodes that you don't see again. And I was trying to call my wife into hopping in on this one, but she ran away. So, but might see some new faces here and there.
Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and say this all again. Like this is a new season. We're kind of testing out new ideas here. We're down, uh, you know, one of our original homies that we started with, and we're trying to become. I mean, don't get me wrong. If a conspiracy pops up and it's interesting, we're going to talk about it.
Right,
But we're also trying to just become more of like an educational platform as well.
right.
Even though you actually do. You have a history degree. I have no credentials whatsoever besides just being really interested in like history and stuff like that. But it's stuff I like to talk about. So you're gonna listen to it. Um, it's just how it is. Um,
Always down for it.
but yeah, we'll just try to be like just inform people of the things that um you might not know about. Like I'm sure there's not a whole lot of people that know about what the Silk Road was or is or anything like that.
Both of them.
And yeah, and just random little bits of information throughout history that could be interesting that your textbook in school probably didn't cover.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, so that's the plan for season 2 of the Rabbit Hole podcast. And remember, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. I'm sure we'll be getting back on Facebook more often now and Instagram to kind of get more updates and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And like Christian said, we would love to involve more people if they want to get involved. Like if you want to come on, and if you have something you want to talk about, you want to come on, and you know something about, some random. If you know an extra lot of information about some random battle in the Civil War or some crap like that, let us know, and
We'd love to hear
we'll
about it.
yeah, we'll hook it up. But
Definitely.
thanks everybody for listening, and
Yes.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tristan, for
Thank you,
being here.
Christian.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I got to get to the right computer over here to stop this. All right. Bye.